Shiva and I know each other from the coaching journey. It was lovely to partner his coaching journey with a cohort about a year ago. And let me just introduce Shiva. And I don't know if I'll do justice, Shiva, so I'm going to ask you to pitch in occasionally. So Shiva teaches creativity and innovation at IIT for young students. He is also a biomimicry evangelist. Right? He teaches biomimicry to young students with the intention of transforming them to become not just innovators, but also sustainability champions. And I think it can't be more relevant than it is at this point in time in the world, right? Having sustainability champions. He also teaches life skills. I think certified to teach creativity from the Edward de Bono Institute, and many more. I know you have something to do with the cricket team in India, Shiva. I'm not sure what the connection is. I'm going to hand it over to you to say something a little more about yourself so everybody gets to know you.
Right. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Priya. I think that's a lot that you said, but and you said the nice thing. So let me. I don't have much to add except that I want to say hi to everybody. I'm absolutely delighted that there are 149 and more people joining. It comes as a very, very pleasant surprise. As far as to adding to Priya is concerned, not much. I have been in Madras almost all my life. I worked, my first job was with the Taj Coromandel. I was a front office assistant. And then I practiced my law. I was a lawyer for about 10 years. Then I worked with TCS for about 20 years. And now I'm at IIT Madras. And so, except for the cricket team bit, yes, what happened was when Greg Chappell came to India, I met him and I said, I have something to offer you. And then he was very intrigued by what I could offer. And we were looking at the connection between creativity and sports. And that was a amazing experience, not because of anything else, but because in India, the dream is to meet cricketers. So that was what it was. So thank you, Priya. Thank you, Cindy. Yeah.
So great, Shiva. When we got started and started talking about my biomimicry, I was really curious to understand how you hit upon this topic. How did this intrigue you, and how does this fit into your vision as a coach? So we can start there, if that's all right.
Okay, but I need to say something else. What happened was I still remember the messages that were exchanged in the group about creativity and all that, and I had offered to do something in creativity, and I didn't expect you to write to Cindy. It was completely out of the blue. I thought the conversation is between you and me, and suddenly you wrote to Cindy, and I said, what? And Cindy replied to me. You know how I felt? I felt in an organization when you want to be vice president, but you cannot be vice president. You go to the manager and say, excuse me, I would like to be vice president. Little knowing surely that he will not go and appoint you vice president. We just say it so that it is in his head, 5 years from now, he'll make you vice president. But then as soon as you say, I want to be vice president, he says, yes, you can be vice president. You don't know what to do. Same thing happened to me when Cindy and you agreed that let's do biomimicry. I said, what have I got myself into? Promise, seriously, right? And that was so therefore, I had to say this because, so therefore I wrote that mail to you saying I'm dancing between nervousness and excitement. Excitement because I want to talk about biomimicry, but nervous because, of the coaching angle. So that's the context I'm setting so that everybody in the audience knows that I need help. And that's it.
So thanks, Shiva. I think this is going to be more of a conversation because this is a topic that's probably a front runner and a new way of looking at coaching itself, if you want to look at it that way. And let's explore as a group. We will invite some of them to ask, talk, yes, reflect. And I know that you have a bit of a presentation. Would you want to get started with that?
Yes, yeah, I will do that. So you asked me, about this journey, and normally one doesn't speak too much about the first slide because the first slide is just an introductory slide. But the more and more I look at this slide, I say I need to speak about it because that's exactly, I think, what we can all do today, right? Visualize. Because when I say visualize, I don't see too many things in front of me, but I know it's there. And so I don't see, I'm not absolutely certain what is the absolute new way is for coaching and biomimicry, but I know it is there. I feel like one explorer who knows there is land, but he doesn't know where that land is. And I'm happy that there are people like you and Cindy who will all of us together explore that. So I like that word visualizing. I'm glad I put that. So that is what I want to say in the beginning. But the next one, what I have done is I have divided this presentation into 3 parts. One is what is biomimicry. The second is the application of biomimicry. And the third is, of course, biomimicry and coaching. The journey for me started about 7 or 8 months ago when I tried to learn systems thinking. And I was very interested in systems thinking, but somehow or the other systems thinking led me to biomimicry. And I couldn't take my eyes off that. I said, wow, this is something I have to do. And then I went to 2 of my colleagues in IIT Madras. I told them we need to teach it in the institute. And then we went and got the Senate's approval and we started teaching it. We just finished our first program. But whenever I taught it from the view of teaching students biomimicry till the time I met you and Cindy and said, maybe there's a connection to coaching. So that's the context. So this is my first slide. How can we fit on Earth as elegantly, fit on Earth? So I think the word here is fit in. And I was reading about this slide and there seems to be the word aspiration over here, right? So there seems to be the word aspiration saying biomimicry is very aspirational. In the sense, we know there is the truth there, but we don't know what it is yet. And can all of us together try and find out what is the strategy nature employs? What is it about nature that is so beautiful? Why is it? And for me, the most intriguing question, Priya, is why is it that we have to try to fit in? Why is it that when we see a picture of a person looking at nature, we always think that the person is separate from nature, right? Why is it that nature, like crows and sparrows and all the animals, they don't try to fit in? Why is it that we as a species have to fit in? I think that's the first thing I want to start thinking about as to why, and I think that is the problem. The very problem of biomimicry, why we still haven't learned from a teacher 3.8 billion years old, is simply because we still are trying to fit in. We still are looking at biomimicry as separate from us, while it is not, right? And so that's the first introduction slide. And the second one is, what is biomimicry? Biomimicry is innovation inspired by nature. So, I have the word innovation is there because that's what I have been teaching. Maybe after this seminar, we can call this as coaching inspired by nature. I would really love to change that word, or innovation stroke coaching inspired by nature. The practice of adapting nature's best ideas to the invention of sustainable technologies, which is what we are trying to do. But the language may change after some time. Essentially, we're talking about imitating. And what I like about this slide is the last line. We don't learn about, because all my life I have always been taught to say wow to nature. But I'm starting to understand that's not enough. I need to stop, not stop saying wow, but I need to continue the wow into saying, can I learn something from nature? So it's about learning from nature, not just looking at nature. Now, this is where I'm getting into trouble. Conscious emulation of life's genius. I know you asked me this question, what is the meaning of conscious emulation? I'm going to look at the emulation and I would like you to interpret the conscious. Emulation, of course, is emulation from living things. And for instance, I walk into a forest, I look at a lotus leaf, and everything around me is dirty, muddy, and all that, except the lotus leaf. And I look at the lotus leaf and my curiosity is aroused. I say, why is it that the lotus leaf is the only thing that's not dirty? And then I look at the lotus leaf a little more closely and I find it's got these small microstructures. And when the water falls on the lotus leaf, the water along with the dirt gets washed off. And therefore the lotus leaf remains clean. Now my engineering mind or my whatever mind is peaked, and I ask myself, how can I apply this in real life? That's an automatic reaction to anyone who sees something so beautiful, so beautifully engineered, right? And then I say, how can I apply it in real life? And I say, wait, what is the problem with dirt in real life? School uniforms. School uniforms get dirty. Can I make cloth with microstructures so that children's clothes don't get dirty and therefore and all that? So that is the emulation bit, imitating nature. And finally, understand that nature is 3.8 billion years old. She's a great teacher. Unfortunately, we've not been able to learn from her. So that's what this slide is about. And the word finite resources, I'll come to that. Now again, this is a difficult slide to explain to a coaching audience because but I'm going to attempt anyway. Emulate, we saw. Ethos, I was reading about ethos. Ethos is the aspiration, the philosophy, that the character, I think it is, right? It is what we want to be. And it says ethos is an underlying aspiration behind something. When we practice biomimicry, or rather a biomimic, what does he want to be? He wants to be creating conditions conducive to life. We don't want to destroy anything while we create something. And as we go further into this presentation, we'll notice that nature has 10 design principles, and these design principles are constructed in such a way that none of those principles will help nature destroy life. And finally, reconnect is what I'm trying to do, Priya, is by helping everyone connect, because all of us are biomimics in some way or the other, right? If you come to IIT Madras, you'll find all the professors doing something around biomimicry. But there must be someone who connects everybody together, and that's what I'm attempting to do. And so,
Shiva, may I request you to just go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So this point around ethos, right? The next.
Yeah.
This speaks so beautifully to the partnering relationship or the environment that we create in a coach-client setting, in the sense that it's about creating a condition that's conducive for the relationship through partnership to arrive at answers and solutions. And some of the ingredients would be psychological safety, unconditional positive regard, creating that space that's conducive for the life, as in this relationship, to flourish, where the client can be themselves and find their answers. So somewhere it just connected to the partnership in a coach-client relationship.
Okay. So, we discussed a lot about this slide. Of course, this is about saying that that the Earth's. So now, the only thing I can think of, and I think it'd be nice to hear from you and Cindy, the coaching context. I will talk about from the innovation context. This slide is important for me when I teach biomimicry, is because it helps me understand and revalidate one thing I've always believed about creativity, which is that creativity flourishes under conditions of constraint or restraint. And many people have asked me, doesn't creativity require lots and lots of freedom? I say no. The more and more rules there are, the more and more restraint there is, the better and better creativity is. So one of the principles of creativity is to say, for instance, sport, right? Sport is full of rules. If you didn't have rules in sports, you wouldn't enjoy the sport. So how does the footballer manage to stay within the rules, at the same time not make it boring, and create new ways of batting, new ways of footballing, new ways of kicking the ball into the goal, etc. And if you look at the Earth system, why the Earth has limited water, the Earth doesn't complain saying, I want more water. It has limited atmosphere, limited sunlight. It doesn't say I want one more sun only when then I can create something. It is constrained by gravity. It's got these seasonal cycles and there's constant change. But in spite of that, look what nature has created for us. Look around us and see that in spite of these restraints, maybe because of these restraints, the earth has created it. So this is my introduction slide, Priya.
Sure. So, Cindy, can I invite you to share what comes up for you in the coaching space when you heard Shiva speak about this? How do you see that?
I'm still reflecting on Shiva's the opening statement when he talks about fitting in. Why do we try so hard to fit in? When we are there and we're coexisting, right? And I think also, Priya, I want to invite everyone else to share their examples of how they're noticing or what in their space is linking to biomimicry, meaning our attachment to nature and how we see the ease of a flow between nature and people. Examples of that you notice around you. And if you allow me, I'd like to talk about one particular example that has left a huge impact on me recently. And I'm not sure whether some of you on this call have seen this movie, My Octopus Teacher, on Netflix. If you haven't and you get a chance, please watch that. Craig Foster would describe his relationship with an octopus. Really? An octopus? And when I first met him 2 years ago, he was guest speaker at the ICF South Africa Coaching Conference. And I was so intrigued when he talks about his relationship with an octopus. And my curiosity just got me more and more interested in watching videos of his interaction with the sea world and his association with sea change and what he was doing to create some kind of positivity around what he was noticing with changing environments of the underworld. And what is so special about this, when he talks about his relationship with the octopus and how day by day, in small ways, they established a relationship that led to a few years of friendship. And when he just got into the water and got to his spot, the octopus would recognize him and come forth.
Hmm.
It's quite magical. And I thought, there was no effort here. There was no really fitting in. There was some kind of, relationship that began to happen with little impact. And that reminded me of coaching. All that curiosity we experience around what is going on with our client within the context and the ripple effect or systemic, what's happening with them systemically. And we began to draw curiosity around that too, right?
That's really beautiful, Cindy.
Thank you. I'll stop there.
Curiosity and an open-minded approach. I think you ease into that relationship, the coach and the client.
It reminds us that some things have a flow to it, right? Not everything is like a big effort to try something.
That's beautiful. And we are also seeing some lovely sharing around how they see the cycles, ebbs, flows of nature, go to everything. Same to coaching relationship.
Yeah.
So Shiva, with this in place, how does it actually work, this concept of biomimicry? How does it really work?
Yeah, so I'm just going to continue. Can you see the presentation? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So I'm just going to continue. So this was the second part of our dialogue, and so this is, so what do we, it's nice what we are doing, because I'm talking completely about the biomimicry angle, and you and Cindy and the audience is pitching in with the coaching angle, and I think that's what is making this very satisfying for me. So what are we mimicking? We are mimicking three things, Priya. One is form. That is, we are mimicking the shape, surface, and all that. Second is we're making the process, so nature has form, nature has process, nature has system. Very simple. And we are simply mimicking form, process, or system. That's what we are mimicking. So when we are imitating, these are three things we imitate. And then I'm going to give you examples for each of them. The first one is form, and the example is the bullet train. Right? It's a very famous example. Now, why is it an example of form? Because when the bullet train was built, apparently the engineer who built the bullet train found it nice, but unfortunately, when it was traveling at great speed through the tunnel, it was making a lot of noise. And of course, fortunately for the world, I say, because most solutions come from physics and chemistry. So he could have gone to physics and chemistry, but he didn't. He was also a bird watcher, and he found that the kingfisher has what is called an almost splashless drive, almost splashless. So when it dives into the water, there's hardly any splash created. So he looked at the beak of the kingfisher and asked himself, can he design the train's mouth or snout or whatever you call it, like the beak? And he designed it, and apparently there's much less noise. So that is imitation of form. The second is imitation of process, right? So the example for this is this, I must have spoken about this about thousands of times in my life. I read about it in a book by Johansson called the Medici Principle. Now, the architect who designed that center is called Mick Pierce. That is in Harare. That is called the Eastgate Mall. Now, when the Eastgate Mall was being built, apparently the people who wanted the mall built asked Mick Pierce to use minimal air conditioning. Now, any architect would have run away from that project, but not Mick Pierce. Why? Because Mick Pierce was not only an architect, he was also an ecologist. So he looked at the termite mounds, and he found out how is it that termite mounds build their entire mound. Apparently, they have this intricate system of letting in air in the night, cooling the mound, and letting the air out in the morning. And thereby, the termite mound remains cool. And you won't believe it, Priya, he actually took the termite mound principle, and the Eastgate Mall is a standing example of very minimal air conditioning, but using the principles of nature. This is an example of process. The third example of system is again a fantastic example from Denmark. It's called the Kalundborg Industrial Symbiosis, where we learn, because nature doesn't waste. There's almost zero waste in nature. Apparently, this industry is built in a village. One industry uses the waste of another industry as its raw material. So these are the three examples of nature, of form, process, and system. And finally, I will leave you with this slide. And this is the process for biomimicry. So biomimicry has a tremendous, it's also scientific. I don't even know, sometimes I sit down and wonder why is it that it's so simple? And this is the process. It's called the biomimicry spiral. You define the problem. I will come back to it, I just read through it, define the problem, we biologize the problem, we discover, abstract, emulate, evaluate. Priya, I'll leave you to it, and then I'll come back and answer these questions.
So this is, again, I've seen this, and of all the things that you shared so far, this was the second big thing that really hit me, that there is a process to it. And when I saw this, I thought, this is not too different from the coaching process in a way, right? So if you look at a coaching process, you're really asking a client as to define what is it that you want to solve for, right? And Shiva, if we were to have some questions that would help someone to understand this process, what would be some of those questions you would ask at each stage?
Yeah. So I have the questions for you in the next slide.
Yeah.
What we do in class is that we start with what. Okay, it's better to say what I did, right? What we started with all my students, about 26 of them, we started with a goal. So we put the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in front of them and said, choose a goal. And each of them chose a goal. So this is what happened, Priya. So first they define the challenge. You define what is the problem I want to solve. Then they biologize. Now that's an interesting word. Biologize is, okay, biologize comes from a belief. The belief is that nature has already solved all the problems that we want to solve. So for instance, if the question is, my United Nations goal is, I want to collaborate. I want to collaborate with other nations. The question you ask is, how does nature collaborate? That is the biologize. You ask that question. The third is discover biological strategies. You look at this fascinating web page. I'm going to show you. I know that we decided not to see it, but I have to show it to the audience. You look at the web page called asknature.org, and there you will find thousands and thousands and thousands of organisms that have already solved the problem of collaboration. So you discover who are those organisms, what are those organisms, which are those organisms. And then you come back and you abstract the design. You say, okay, this is the way the organism has collaborated. You abstract the design and you apply it in your own problem, and finally you find out whether that solution it fits your context and your function, etc. So essentially, these are the steps for biomimicry. And can I quickly share that web page so that we are very, very
Sure.
Yeah. So this is the web page I'm talking about. I wanted to show it to the audience, and this is called this is why I think Janine Benyus and Biomimicry have done so much of a benefit to the world. Now, this is the web page called asknature.org. For instance, you see I've already typed collaborate over there. These are all the various functions of organisms, and I go to collaborate, and the minute I type in collaborate, I get all these organisms that are collaborating. So honeybees collaborate, and ants collaborate, and it goes on and on and on, Priya. And all I have to do, once I put the question to nature, how does nature do this? Then I go to this website, I pick up the strategies of nature. For instance, just for fun, let's look at this. The entire strategy is outlined here. Okay. Yeah. So this is the entire strategy of mutualism in nature, and everything is outlined here. Then I look at this whole thing and I extract the principles that nature has used and I bring it to the real world. This is called asknature.org. Amazing number of strategies. Almost, I don't know how many number, but somebody has worked very, very hard on this. So you have all these functions, and you also have what is it that you can learn from bacteria, what is it you can learn from mammals, what is it you can learn from insects, etc.
This is really fantastic. I mean, it's just amazing how much is available out there, inherently available, and all we need to do is discover. And if you go back to those questions there, Shiva, I was fascinated by how a coaching conversation can actually fit into this process in a way. For example, if say, for example, we are looking at a problem to solve, saying, I want to know how to delegate. Yeah. So what is the problem that I wish to solve? It's, I want to delegate. Yeah. So how does nature accomplish what I wish to solve? So I go to Ask Nature and find out what nature's already doing. Is that right, Shiva?
Yes. So, it will be simplistic for me to ask, how does nature delegate? But that's the rule. But yes. I won't say how does nature delegate. What I'll do is I'll look at the synonyms of delegate.
Absolutely.
And find out what delegate really means. Yes. And maybe say, how does nature share, or how does nature and all that. So that's what I do. So that is called biologize the question. I have defined the problem. I have now come to the biologize question, which is how does nature do? But Priya, I'm sorry for repeating, but there's underlying belief. That nature has already solved it, Priya. That is the key.
Beautiful.
If I don't have that belief, I will not go to the web page.
Mm.
I will simply look at physics, chemistry, maths, what my friends have done, what other leaders have done, what is the, I will not look and find how is it that nature, and I think that is the key to this whole session. How do we make every one of us believe that nature has already solved all the problems known to humans, including non-technical, and biology and biomimicry is technology agnostic, right? So you don't have to be a biologist to practice biomimicry. So that's, I'm sorry for a long answer, but the question is, how does nature share?
And in the process, we discover strategies of how they do it, what creatures in the universe does that in nature. And then we sort of try and see how we can apply it in our context to solve the problem that we are working with. So how do I apply the bio-inspired strategy into the problem that I'm trying to solve? And how can the solution be deployed in the real world? I mean, this is really a systemic way of looking at it, isn't it? I mean, where you are actually saying, how else, what more? Keeping in mind that we are taking actions and we are taking actions keeping in mind the interconnectedness of the ecosystem. As a client, you're also looking at them working in their real life context, whether it's the organization or their personal world and all of it. So I would really like to invite, I mean, such fantastic comments here. Want to check in with the group, how do you see this connected to some of the competencies that we use? Surely powerful questioning comes up, but how else do you see this?
I think maybe also while the group is typing, I'll raise this point. I think for me it's raising the question how to better use the resources of nature in a more organic way.
Mm-hmm.
When Shiva spoke about that building in Zimbabwe, where more plants was used into the building. So it kind of raised the question, how do we use natural resources in a more organic way? Um, Instead of picking and choosing when we and containing natural resources. For example, I'll contain a river so that I get the best view, or I'll redirect a source of water so my building can view the source of water. That only suits me, whereas a larger community would have benefited from all of it. So I guess it raises for me a question around resources.
Hmm. Hmm. So would we say then, Cindy, how do we help the client to connect to their own inner resources, inherent?
Absolutely right. Yeah. And of course this topic is helping us think deeper, reflect on, connect dots for ourselves. Which is what I kind of love to encourage. When talking about resources, it's not just a once-off question. Who can help you, or what resource do you need? It's like a more holistic exploration of resources around you, and that takes time, right, to connect some dots, and it doesn't just, the answers just don't show up.
Mm, mm. I think you also bring up something really important here, Cindy. I think when we design, for example, we design our actions, um, how much of the ecosystem do we keep in mind?
Hmm.
So sometimes we dip into the resources that we already have. Sometimes we need to draw from what's around us. Keeping in mind
Absolutely.
that, yeah, that's a beautiful thought.
Absolutely right. That's lovely. Yeah. Yeah, it's so. I think I'm not sure whether I shared this with Siva. Part of me tells me that I did. I once had a client who was consistently speaking about the low energy levels, and I asked, something around what in your natural environment would help you create a space where you can draw on from more energy, or something like that. I don't exactly remember the context, the actual words I said. And there was a lot of thinking and reflecting, and the client suddenly said, I used to watch the sunrise, and I used to feel so energized by that. And it's about 20 years now since I've done that. So it was something I did for a long time and I stopped. Perhaps I should start that again. And what a difference it made, to him over time to reconnect to something that he was doing that was more natural. It was there in the environment,
Mm.
a resource that was organic for that client.
Thanks for sharing that session. I mean, the example from a coaching session that you've had, Cindy, makes it quite real what we are talking, right?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
what do you have to offer, Shiva, at this point in time in terms of you know sustainable um, dipping into nature? What's coming up for you?
Me, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got
yeah, you.
I got
Yeah.
I got completely engrossed in the topic. I thought, okay, what is the question? Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just wondering what's coming up for you when, as you're hearing this. Clearly, you were deeply immersed in it.
Yeah. So, no, no, you're asking me about the sustainability angle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's very funny that you asked that question because when I started teaching biomimicry, Priya, I never wanted to teach sustainability. I didn't even know that word.
Hmm.
But then when I went through the entire program, 13-week program, at the end of 13 weeks, you won't believe it, every one of my students has come out with a solution which is sustainable by nature. So somehow the process of biomimicry leads you to sustainability, I think. And which is what one of the dreams I have is to create more and more biomimics, which means it serves several purposes. You not only learn about nature, you also can use that learning. And third, I'm not sure with any of my students or me ever again will even think. I don't promise because it'd be stupid to promise that, but I'm going to think very, very deeply before I start to harm nature. So I think that is what resulted in my wanting to champion sustainability. It was never the intention, but it just turned out that it happened.
Shiva, I gotta say this. It seems like this topic is already in you. I feel like it's so embedded in you because when you speak, nothing around you sounds like an expert, but it sounds more like a learned process, where you're just talking quite real and as if it's been there for quite some time.
Yeah, okay, maybe because I was talking to my students today, and I said, biomimicry has helped me find my purpose because my life has been little empty up to now, and whatever I have tried in my life has not really, I haven't really found. I've never made this audience possible before in my life, but today I really wanted to make it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're holding all what you know in the background, and what comes forward is a very easy, lovely way to engage with you on
Okay,
this topic.
thank you. Yeah. So let's go
Go
ahead.
on, Shiva. Go on.
Should we go to the next portion of what
Sure.
you?
Sure.
So from there, I want to take you to, this is again something I don't know. There's so much of surprise in store. I thought once I finished making the spiral, I thought that's it, right? But then biometry doesn't stop surprising you. It says, wait, Shiva, I have something more to tell you. And there is this beautiful, and there is this thing called nature's unifying patterns. That is the principles that nature uses in order to design. Right? There are 10 of them, but I know that because of the time constraint, we said only we said we will discuss 3, right? But these 10 principles, and I will send it by email or something like that, so the whole audience can see all the 10. And so why don't I just show the 10 very quickly, Priya? Can I?
Yeah, sure, please go on. Please.
Okay. So if I go to that great website that's been created by the Biomimicry Institute called the Biomimicry Fund. So this is the biomimicry.org website. Biomimicry. So if any of you want to do this, go to the biomimicry.org website, go to the toolbox, and there you will find nature's unifying patterns. These are the 10 design principles of nature. These are the 10 design principles of nature. These are the 10 design principles. Nature uses only the energy it needs and relies on freely available energy. Nature recycles all materials. Nature is resilient to disturbances. Nature, and these are all the principles. Nature tends to optimize. Nature provides mutual benefits. Look at that, right? And nature runs on information. Sorry, what happened? Yeah, so nature runs on, you can see it, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so these are the 10 design principles. And so, you know, in your leisure, whenever you are free, you can go to each of these. You go to each principle, it take you to how nature does this. So I'm coming back to the presentation. And so here, what we did was, Priya and I said we will use 3 just for today's audience.
So Shiva, there's a question as to where this listing can be found.
Biomimicry.org.
Do you want to just type that in, Shiva?
Yes. No,
Are you going to share the? Yeah, okay,
yes,
thanks.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Sven.
So the unifying patterns are this one. That's what we said we'll discuss today. Nature is resilient to disturbances. So you want to talk about that, Priya, as to what is it that you see here?
I think one of the key things for me as a coach that I'm learning from this particular slide, Shiva, is that it also kind of reinforces my belief in the fact that each one of the clients are also resilient. Perhaps that is a belief that I'd like to go into a coaching session with. Belief in the client that they are resilient to disturbance. So there is enough example in nature. And what's this tree? What's the picture there, Shiva? You want to share that?
You got me on that. I should have prepared for that question. Okay, it's called the lodgepole pine, I think. That when a forest hits the forest, when a fire hits the forest, it gets destroyed, but it grows again. So there is this principle of self-healing in nature, and I think there's a company that's actually making a product called self-healing cement, where when the construction is broken, it heals itself. So the point is how these design principles shape what nature does. And if at some point in our lives, I don't know, maybe 100 years from now, if every designer who is listening to this can look at his design and align it to the nature's principles, I think our world will be a much better place to live in.
Wow.
So the next principle that we thought we will discuss is nature provides mutual benefits. Why this is I can't say favorite, because why I want to talk about this, because this is one of those things I have a good example for. And no, it's just joking. So there is this video of David Attenborough, and that's the sloth, of course. And apparently the sloth lives on top of the tree, and the sloth, of course, all of us know, is a slow animal and all that. And this beautiful video, and you must watch the way David Attenborough explains this video. It's almost as if he's talking to you. In a way, I think he is. So what happens is every week, the sloth comes down slowly from the tree. And David Attenborough says that the most vulnerable time for the sloth is when it is on the ground, because it can be attacked by any animal, but it doesn't care. What it does on the ground, it defecates on the ground, and thereby telling the tree that you have given me shade, you have given me protection, I need to give something back to you. And it does that and climbs the tree back and sits on top of the tree. Now, if you look at that, Priya, I remember the two of us speaking to each other about mutualism as to how it happens in a coaching session, right? Actually, I was always thinking that the mutualism is that the coach and the coachee learn from each other. But you brought it out beautifully, saying no, when the coachee picks up something, then what he can do is he can use whatever he picks up in a conversation, whatever he picks up from the coaching session, he can use that learning to benefit others. And therefore, there is mutualism in coaching. So I thought, I have to bring it out. So I don't know where we are going with this, but apparently there's so much to learn.
Absolutely. I think we have just touched the surface, and I can see how inspired you are, Shiva, and that itself is inspiring all of us. I don't think any of us will go out of this, and I'm speaking for the group here, we'll take a second look at nature when we step out and say, hey, we are part of the same ecosystem. We are part of one and the same. So this is a lovely principle on which nature works.
But how does mutualism work in coaching?
So the way I see it is, when a coachee has got some awareness, has discovered something, and actually goes out there and experiments and makes it a new way of being and doing, the ripple effect of it can be felt by the entire ecosystem. For example, a leader, and let's go back to the same example of delegation. Say a leader goes back to his team and he's able to delegate, works over his, whatever the interferences are. What he sees, what he experiences is an ecosystem that is empowered, equally empowering him. So there is a ripple effect, and there is this mutualism and that's how I connected to coaching.
Okay. And the third principle is this one. Nature is locally attuned. I thought you had some very nice points around this.
Yeah, to me, what really this spoke is, as a coach, when I'm sitting in the chair in front of the client, right, I'm responsive to what's happening in the here and now. If I'm thinking, so I'm really connecting the locally attuned to being present in the here and now. And my response comes from that space, not a premeditated question or an answer or anything. Very spontaneous, curious, intuitive, and very much attuned to what the other person is saying. Cindy, what comes up for you when you see this? Cindy, you're on mute.
Definitely, I have quite a few thoughts around nature is locally attuned and responsive. You get so many coaches or clients or even people generally will share examples of, for example, when they took a break and they sit outside or take a walk on the beach. You'll hear the benefits of them talking, or some people doing some gardening, planting something, or taking a walk in the forest or something. There's this connection they feel. And this connection to humanness or humankind seems like it's been there forever. It captures wisdom of nature and draws it or brings it into human beings, or the other way around too. This mutual benefits, it seems like it's always been there, right? When I think about, years ago when people talk about leadership meetings held out in rural areas, there's always this analogy to sitting under a tree or the wisdom of the environment around you and drawing from the peacefulness or whatever's happening in that environment and bringing that into whatever you need to solve or resolve.
Mm, mm.
So I guess it's there, right? Or we all are attuned to nature in some way or the other. And perhaps what this webinar is doing is giving us like a spotlight to really start looking at things. I feel like I've got a light and I want to put it on many things and explore and kind of attune to it more.
Very nice.
So I also want to do this, or say this, Shiva and Priya, that we have the last few minutes to go. Are we? How much more do we have to cover so that we can know whether we have to ask people to stay on 5 minutes more, or we can complete in time?
So there's not much more. This is what we planned, Cindy. So there's nothing,
Okay.
we're going straight to that question. And finally, I couldn't have done this presentation without showing Janine Benyus' picture and the book that she wrote and how she started this brilliant movement. And finally, of course, I have this slide, which is what people asked about the two websites that I use. It's called the biomimicry.org and asknature.org. And my final slide is, of course, the thank you slide. So, in a way, I have finished my presentation. I suppose this is what is the question that we can leave open to the audience. But that's what it is, Cindy. So if I can stop share, maybe you can start to ask the audience. Can I do that?
Yeah, I would like to invite one or two questions, and I think you have a minute or two to answer them, Shiva. So if anybody got a question, can you show the book again? Somebody wants to see the book again, please, Shiva.
Yeah.
And any questions? We can take one or two questions now, and the rest, perhaps, I'd love to invite you to write a blog post or something on it, and we'll send it out to our coaching community. So may I invite you to also, write a blog post?
Sure. Yes, of course. I'm very inspired. I have to right now.
Oh yeah, wonderful. You have to say this while I'll keep an eye out for questions coming in. And of course, I'm going to hand over back to Priya to do whatever she needs to complete. But what I do want to say is an immense gratitude and appreciation for you raising this topic and giving us a space where we can expand our own thinking. And of course, being will follow, right? But we got the space to do some expansion, some exploring. And I hope next year, at some point, we invite you back to see how we can further that thinking. We've opened the topic, we'd like to explore it and go deeper.
Sure.
Thank you, Shiva.
Yeah.
Priya?
Priya, you're muted.
Right. Do we have any questions, Cindy?
No, I think there was one, but I'm going to keep that for a blog post. I'll copy the questions and send it through, and Shiva can answer that.
All right. So then I think there's just been tremendous outpouring of thoughts and sharing and reflection. Shiva, you've really kickstarted some great thinking here and expansive way of looking. And the one thing that I'm taking away from this entire thing is reaffirming the fact that we are part of our ecosystem. We create the ecosystem, and the ecosystem also creates us. So deep respect for what is happening around us and nature as a coach. Thank you so much, Shiva, I know this is a huge topic and you've brought it all together for the coaching community. Thank you so much for being here, and wishing the audience and all of you a very Merry Christmas and a fantastic 2021. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
What do you want to say to complete, Shiva?
So I have enjoyed this session immensely. I was a little nervous in the beginning. I think I told you, but now I'm not nervous anymore because there's so much of support. And and my only thing is, let's all. I don't know. There are a lot of people here. Can all of us together? I think Ram, whenever he starts, I have written down the question. He had written to me saying, whenever I start a session, I say, what does the universe want you to be? Apparently, Ram starts the session with that. So I'm saying, I'm just picking up from Ram, borrowing piggyback and all that. What is the universe teaching you? That is the question I want to ask. What is the universe teaching you? And can all of us as coaches, you know, nature needs spokespeople. Nature needs a spokesperson. That's the pity of this world. There's nobody on behalf of nature. So if we can get biomimicry into our coaching practice, and if we can become, let's say, sustainable coaches, sustainability coaches, maybe that's a great new profession to be in. Or maybe if we can at some point in the coaching competencies, if we can use biomimicry to help the coachee move along and introduce to the coachee the word biomimicry, corporates and all that, I think we'd have done great service to nature, Cindy. So, I always believe there's something called transformative innovation. I didn't know what it was before this session. Apparently, transformative innovation is that innovation that all of us bring together to create a new world. Now, I don't think I'm going to live for more than 20 years. Maybe that's time I have on this world. And I'm really not going to have a problem with what's happening, right? Nature is not going to be, it's not going to be so affected right now. But I'm thinking of 100 years from now, Cindy. 100 years from now, how long can I keep on this air conditioner in my room? There has to be an alternative to the air conditioner, right? And which is why the termite mound principle was important. So can we all together look for alternatives? Can we all together say that nature is a teacher, and who else to trust but a 3.8 billion-year-old teacher? So that's the message I thought I would part with.
Yeah, I love the way in which you raise that.
All right. Thank you for this opportunity, Cindy and Priya. It could not have happened without the two of you and your support.
You actually know the pleasure belongs to all of us, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's so true, Cindy.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. We'll see you all in the new year for an
Yeah.
exciting set of webinars.
Thank you.
Take care. See you all soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.